Hi everyone, it's Katrina. From entire airplanes gone missing to an oil tanker worth $100 million, here are 10 of the biggest things ever stolen. The audacity of some of these people will amaze you. Number 10. Boeing 727. You might think it's pretty hard to steal an airplane, but clearly it is not impossible since an airplane was stolen in 2002. The Boeing 727 that disappeared later became the subject of a worldwide search, and it has still never been located. Did you already hear about this story? Owned by Maury Joseph, the president of Aerospace Sales and Leasing, Inc., the American Airlines jet was retired in almost mint condition. Joseph later sold the aircraft to a South African entrepreneur for $1 million. After receiving $125,000 as a down payment, Joseph removed the passenger seats from the aircraft so it could be installed with 10 large fuel tanks. After agreeing to allow the aircraft to travel to Angola, Joseph insisted one of his employees travel along with it to make sure he received the money for the purchase of the sale. On February 28, 2002, the aircraft left Miami for Luanda. The money never materialized for the sale, and the aircraft was grounded for not having the proper documentation, verifying that it was legally converted to a tanker. Effectively abandoned, the aircraft remained in Luanda until Joseph found a new buyer for the plane. A former employee of Joseph's, Ben Padilla, a freelance flight engineer, worked to restore the aircraft to service. After obtaining a pilot and co-pilot, the craft was to be flown to Johannesburg, where Joseph and the new owner would meet. You know, international business deals, that's how they go, just flying all over the world. Padilla went to see the aircraft the day before he was supposed to fly it to Johannesburg to test the 3 engines of the aircraft. Just before sunset, he and his assistant boarded the aircraft, but without contacting air traffic control or obtaining clearance, they began to taxi the airplane. Apparently, the lights on the airplane were off, and the transponder wasn't transmitting as it maneuvered radically and entered the runway. With its lights off and no communication, the aircraft took off from the runway, turned southwest, and flew towards the Atlantic Ocean, never to be seen again. After disappearing without a trace, some speculated that there was someone on the aircraft waiting to ambush Padilla. Unable to solve the mystery, the case was closed in 2005, unresolved. No trace of the aircraft has ever been found, and because it was never seen again and none of its parts were ever spotted, some believe the aircraft must have crashed in the Atlantic Ocean shortly after takeoff. Though without any evidence, the story of the stolen Boeing 727 remains a mystery. Number 9. Tyrannosaurus Sue. Another seemingly impossible feat is the ability to steal a dinosaur, but apparently it happens a lot. Fossils and artifacts are hot items. So what happened? A paleontologist by the name of Peter Larson unearthed an almost complete skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus Rex in 1990. Found in the state of South Dakota, it was the most intact T-Rex skeleton ever found. After paying a local rancher named Maurice Williams $5,000 to dig on his property, Larson and his team unearthed the remains that had been preserved for 67 million years. They planned to showcase their discovery at the Black Hills Institute in South Dakota, but a series of events foiled their plans. After their SUV broke down, one of the team members, Sue Hendrickson, decided to venture out on her own on the ranch where they'd spent weeks searching for fossils. Amazingly, Sue discovered a lot of broken bones up the side of a cliff as well as 3 articulated vertebrae. After showing one of the vertebrae to her colleagues, Sue, Larson, and the rest of the team ran back to the site. They spent the next few weeks carefully unearthing the skeleton, now nicknamed Sue after their team member, and they encased the bones in plaster and transferred them to the Black Hills Institute where they prepared them for display. More than 80% of the skeleton was recovered, making it the most complete and largest T-Rex ever found. Injuries found on some of the bones indicated that the T-Rex had been attacked and died from them. But before Larson and his team could celebrate their discovery and officially put it on display, the excitement turned to outrage when federal agents arrived at the Institute and seized Sue, as well as all the records related to the T-Rex and other documents from the Black Hills Institute. The agents indicated the team had stolen the T-Rex from federal land, and after the original landowner changed his story about being paid for the fossil, he claimed it belonged to him. Then it turned out that his ranch was part of Indian Trust land, which only made things more complicated. It's hard to say who really stole from whom. For 18 months, Sue remained locked up as the federal government gathered evidence against Larson and his team members, accusing them of stealing. To make an already sticky situation even worse, the institute had been under investigation for years for illegally taking fossils off public lands and selling them internationally. See, they're in big demand. In the end, 153 charges were laid against Peter Larson and 5 others on his team. Fossil theft, money laundering, and false statements to government agencies were just some of the charges, although none of the charges related to Sue's discovery. In the end, Williams ended up with an additional $7.6 million from the eventual auction of Sue, who is now on display in Chicago's Field Museum. Peter Larson later served 18 months in federal prison for customs violations unrelated to the T-Rex. Larson still runs the Black Hills Institute of Geological Research in South Dakota. He and his team also found an additional 10 partial Tyrannosaurus Rex skeletons. So what do you think? Did Larson and his team steal the T-Rex from the rancher, or did they illegally remove it from federal land? Did the FBI steal it? What about the fact that Williams' private ranch was part of Indian Trust land? Did that allow him to make a claim for the dinosaur? Maybe he stole the land from the Indian Trust in the first place. What began as an exciting find turned into a very complicated situation that, to this day, makes the discovery of Sue the T-Rex even more fascinating. Number 8. Buddhist Bell. It doesn't just take nerves of steel to make off with a 3,000-pound bell from a Buddhist temple. You might say it also takes a forklift. In 2005, the bell was stolen from a Vietnamese Buddhist temple in Tacoma, Washington. Together with its hand-carved wooden frame, the bell stands 12 feet tall and disappeared in early January 2005. Originally suspended from the beams of an open-sided meditation pavilion, the bell is a very significant part of the practice of Buddhism. Remarkably, that is not the first theft that has happened on the temple grounds. 1 month prior, a 500-pound statue was also stolen. Even though the bell was only used on rare occasions, the belief that it can awaken the soul and empty the mind of all impurities, two very important aspects of Buddhist meditation, make the theft that much more disappointing. Originally cast in Vietnam, the importance of the bell, regardless of what it cost, is impossible to calculate. Number 7. Stolen fighter plane. What's worse, stealing a World War II Mustang fighter plane or selling it after you've stolen it? When Air Force Reserve Major Yachts decided to make off with the propeller-driven plane, authorities were rightfully concerned. Surprisingly, though, after taking the plane, which was parked at a reserve airfield waiting to be moved to the Air Force Museum, Yachts spent some time restoring the plane before he secretly flew it to Sweden and illegally sold it for $331,000. Purchased by a Swedish company, the plane was flown for 6 years before Israeli authorities traced the missing aircraft with the help of Interpol. That took kind of a long time, don't you think? The plane provided valuable service to the Israeli Air Force before being retired 25 years ago. So what made the Air Force reservist steal the fighter plane? Unfortunately, we can't know his motive other than the pretty penny he made for illegally selling it. At least he tuned it up before he handed it over to his buyer, and authorities were able to trace the craft and return it to where it rightfully belonged. Not sure what happened to the buyer. I guess they're out of their $300K. And now for number 6. But first, a big shout out to some of our amazing subscribers, Matt's Geek Corner and Reviews and Suha Shetty. Love you guys too. Be sure to subscribe if you're new here and let me know which one of these stolen things shocks you the most. Number 6. Stone Bridge in China. Wondering why someone would steal a centuries-old bridge? Villagers in China's Zhejiang province were wondering the same thing when they woke up to find the bridge missing. In August 2013, villagers woke up to find that their bridge had disappeared overnight. The thief, only known by his last name Chen, hired a crane operator to disassemble the bridge in more than 30 parts. After loading the stones onto 2 trucks in the middle of the night, Chen transported the stones to a slate yard 50 kilometers away. The 20-meter-long bridge was located in the Yanjiaojiao village in the Yuhang district and was a staple for locals who had built the bridge with donations from fellow villagers who used to walk over it every day. More than just being a simple way to cross over the river, the bridge had many fond memories for the neighborhood, even though newer, better roads were used more often. Luckily, Chen did not make off with the purported 40,000 yuan he was set to receive from the buyer for the stones. With both Chen and his partner in crime later arrested, villagers could now sleep easy and prepare themselves to rebuild their beloved bridge. Number 5. Dinosaur Skeletons. If you thought there could only possibly be one dinosaur theft, think again. I told you, it happens more than you might think. In 2014, the Manhattan U.S. Attorney made an announcement that over 18 dinosaur skeletons would be returned to Mongolia after being illegally obtained. 2 Tyrannosaurus skeletons, along with a number of other fossils of dinosaurs native to the Gobi Desert, were being returned to the people of Mongolia. Tyrannosaurus essentially the Asian cousin of the T-Rex, originally sold at auction for over $1 million and was first discovered in 1946 during an expedition to the Gobi Desert. Unfortunately, the bones had been taken from Mongolia and sent to Great Britain without permission from the Mongolian government, which were later imported to the US along with documents containing numerous false statements. After examining the bones and determining that they were in fact taken from Mongolia's Gobi Desert, a man by the name of Eric Prokopi, a self-described commercial paleontologist who originally imported the Tyrannosaurus skeleton, was arrested on a number of counts including smuggling illegal goods, possessing stolen property, and making false statements. Prokopi ran a business out of his Florida home where he bought and sold whole and partial fossilized dinosaur skeletons. Not long after being arrested, he pled guilty to engaging in a scheme to illegally import the fossilized remains of other dinosaurs taken from their native countries illegally. In 2013, the Tyrannosaurus was formally returned to the government of Mongolia in a repatriation ceremony in New York. The remaining dinosaur fossils were returned in July 2014. Number 4. A Russian church. How do you steal a Russian church? Brick by brick, apparently. After a 200-year-old church building disappeared from a village in central Russia, officials from the Russian Orthodox Church were understandably upset. Sometime in early October 2008, thieves made off with the Church of the Resurrection brick by brick. So how were the thieves able to get away with it? It might be because the church was in a remote location. Since it was 300 kilometers or 186 miles northeast of Moscow, maybe it made it vulnerable to thieves. But why steal the building? I mean, who orders an entire stolen church? They must have had a buyer first. You don't want to steal something like that for no reason. Unfortunately, not much is known as to the motives, and all that remained after the thieves finished was a school and the building's foundation, as well as a part of the wall of the church. After doing more research, apparently churches in rural Russia are often the target of thieves who steal religious icons and sell them off. Unfortunately for the Church of the Resurrection, which stood near the village of Komarovo since 1809, remembrances of the once magnificent church were all villagers had left after the thieves were finished with their scheme. Number 3. Luxury yachts. It's no secret that the rich and famous love to make their wealth known in the city of Dubai. So when 2 yachts worth $4 million were stolen from the Dubai marina, investigators had quite the task on their hands to find out who had taken them. It's bad enough that the yachts were stolen, but they were later found to be used to commit crimes including human trafficking and gun running. These were powerful bad people with connections. As it turns out, the 2 yachts, named Alter Ego and Zula, were used by the company Ultimate Charter to provide lavish experiences around Dubai. The company's manager was wanted by Dubai police for a number of unrelated but equally serious crimes for Dubai, including unpaid fines, alcohol-related crimes, and other nefarious practices. Authorities continue to look into the operations of Ultimate Charter, but it doesn't bode well for the company or its owner, who left the country by cover of night to get away from authorities. Number 2. Tank Rampage. Sure, we've all seen tanks being stolen in the movies, but did you know that actually happened in 1995? A man by the name of Sean Nelson stole a 57-ton tank from the San Diego National Guard Armory, taking it on a destructive rampage through the streets. It wasn't a happy ending for Nelson either, as he was later fatally shot by a police officer. A plumber in his mid-30s, Nelson was said to have been acting strangely before the rampage. After taking the tank from the National Guard Armory, he sped through the streets, toppling telephone poles and crushing vehicles. Thousands of motorists were struck on Route 163, which closed in both directions as police pulled Nelson, now shot, out of the tank. It later took 2 other tanks to push the disabled one onto a flatbed truck. The 31-foot-long vehicle had the ability to reach speeds of 30 miles per hour and weighed 57.3 tons when fully loaded for combat. Unfortunately, the Claremont man met a sad fate, but luckily no other residents were injured in this strange tank rampage. Number 1. Oil tanker. In 2008, Somali pirates took control of a Saudi supertanker that was carrying up to 2 million barrels of oil worth $100 million. With 25 crew on board the Sirius Star, the ship was captured 450 miles southeast of the Kenyan port of Mombasa. The U.S. Navy tracked the ship until it was close to anchoring on Somalia's northeastern coast. Because northern Somalia is so notorious for heavily armed pirate gangs, NATO and other international warships increased patrols in the area. At the time of this theft, pirates were holding about a dozen vessels hostage, along with more than 200 foreign crew. This must have been a terrifying experience. They were also said to have already netted more than 20 million euros in ransoms at the time of the theft. Between July and September of 2008, there were 47 attacks off Somalia's coast, making thefts such as this a common occurrence that companies and crew need to be on the watch for. It is amazing and very scary the resources the pirates have at their disposal. Thanks for watching! Which of these stolen things surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you would like to see more like these. See you later! Bye!